A mysterious secret unfolds as a spouse's strange behavior and a horse's unusual illness lead to unexpected revelations. Behind locked doors, what seems like infidelity turns out to be a desperate attempt to save their beloved horse. A story of trust, misunderstandings, and a bond that can overcome any challenge. Hi everyone, welcome back. Thanks for joining us today. We've got a brand new story to share with you. So let's begin. I never imagined the day I'd question everything about my marriage, my life, and my trust in the one person I thought I knew best. It all started as a regular evening, nothing unusual, just me, my spouse, and the comforting stillness of our home. But something had been different lately, a strange tension in the air that I couldn't quite place. My spouse was more secretive, retreating to our bedroom with hurried excuses, always locking the door behind them. I told myself not to overthink it, that everyone deserves their privacy, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. Then there was our horse, a majestic creature who'd always been a part of our family. Lately, it had been acting oddly too, skittish and agitated, as though it sensed something I couldn't see. These small, disconnected pieces of a larger puzzle began to gnaw at me. My gut told me I wasn't imagining things, but I didn't have the courage to confront the truth. Until one night, when curiosity got the better of me. Standing outside our locked bedroom door, I heard muffled voices and sounds I couldn't explain. My heart pounded as I quietly turned the knob, only to find it locked. That's when I knew whatever was happening behind that door was something I wasn't meant to see, but I couldn't look away. What I discovered that night left me questioning everything and shattered the life I thought I had. I couldn't sleep that night. My mind raced with questions, doubts, and fears. What was my spouse hiding? Why was the door always locked now? I replayed the sounds I'd heard, trying to make sense of them, but they didn't fit into anything ordinary. It felt as if the walls of our house were keeping secrets from me, echoing whispers I wasn't meant to hear. The next morning, I tried to act normal. Over breakfast, I watched my spouse carefully. Every glance, every word, every subtle change in their tone. They seemed distant, distracted, as if carrying the weight of something they couldn't share. It hurt to see the person I loved slipping away, but I didn't dare bring it up. I needed answers, not more questions, and I knew confronting them would only make them more cautious. Our horse, Midnight, added to the strangeness. He'd always been calm, a gentle giant who loved attention, but lately he seemed restless. He avoided my spouse, shying away whenever they came close. It was subtle, but it was there. I started spending more time with him, brushing his coat and talking to him, as if he might somehow reveal what was going on. Then came the deliveries. Packages arrived at odd hours, with no explanation. My spouse brushed it off, saying they were work-related, but I noticed how quickly they would grab the boxes and disappear into the bedroom. Each day, the knot in my stomach tightened, and I realized I was on the edge of something I wasn't prepared for. Days turned into weeks, and the tension in the house only grew heavier. I tried to distract myself with work, with friends, but the thought of what was happening behind that locked door consumed me. Every time my spouse disappeared into the bedroom, I felt like an outsider in my own home. It wasn't just the secrecy, it was the growing distance between us. Conversations became surface level. Smiles felt forced, and the warmth we once shared was now a cold, unspoken void. One evening, I decided to test the waters. "You've been spending a lot of time in there lately," I said casually, nodding toward the bedroom. My spouse's reaction was immediate, a flicker of panic that quickly turned into a defensive laugh. "Just working on a surprise," they said, brushing it off. But it didn't sit right with me. A surprise for weeks? Later that night, I found myself sitting in the dark, staring at the bedroom door. Midnight's soft neighs echoed from outside, where I'd left him in the barn. He was restless again, and I couldn't shake the feeling that he was somehow connected to all of this. I thought about the packages, the locked door, and the way my spouse had been avoiding Midnight altogether. None of it added up. Driven by equal parts fear and desperation, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. If I wanted the truth, I'd have to find it myself. The next time that door opened, I'd be ready. The night I decided to uncover the truth, everything felt different. The house was unnervingly quiet, the kind of silence that presses down on you, amplifying every creak of the floorboards and every whisper of doubt in your mind. I waited until my spouse had gone to bed, listening intently as their footsteps retreated behind the locked bedroom door. I couldn't ignore the sound of Midnight's restless movements outside. It was as if he, too, was waiting for something to happen. I stood in the hallway, heart pounding, staring at that door. I'd never felt so conflicted. Part of me wanted to believe my spouse's excuses, to walk away and let it go. But the other part, the part that couldn't ignore the signs, knew this moment would change everything. I inched closer, holding my breath as I pressed my ear against the door. There it was again, those faint muffled sounds. But this time, they were clearer. Low whispers, the shuffle of movement, something metallic clinking softly. My stomach turned as a chill ran down my spine. What was I about to walk into? My mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. Summoning every ounce of courage, I gently tried the doorknob. Locked as expected, but I had planned for this. Reaching into my pocket, I pulled out a small tool I'd borrowed from the barn. My hands shook as I worked the lock, each click bringing me closer to whatever lay on the other side. I wasn't ready, but I had no choice. The lock clicked open with a soft sound that seemed deafening in the stillness. My pulse pounded in my ears as I pushed the door ever so slightly, just enough to see a sliver of light spilling into the hallway. I hesitated, my hand trembling on the doorknob. Every part of me screamed to stop, to turn back before I saw something I could never unsee. But it was too late for that. I pushed the door open just a little more, my breath caught in my throat. The room looked ordinary at first glance, but something was off. A strange smell lingered in the air, faint but unsettling. The packages from earlier were stacked neatly in the corner, some of them open. My eyes darted around, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. Then I spotted it, Midnight's saddle. It was lying on the floor, not in the barn where it belonged. And then I saw them. My spouse was hunched over something, their back to me, completely absorbed in whatever they were doing. The light illuminated their face just enough for me to see an expression I couldn't recognize. Focused, determined, and almost desperate. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I felt like the air had been sucked out of the room as I stood frozen in the doorway, waiting for them to notice me. Whatever was about to happen next, I knew there was no turning back. My spouse turned at the sound of the door creaking open, their eyes widening in shock. For a moment, there was complete silence, broken only by the heavy, ragged breathing that filled the room. I stood frozen, staring at them in disbelief. It was as though they hadn't expected me to find out. But here we were, this unspoken truth finally exposed. "Why?" I whispered, my voice trembling. "What is this? What's going on with Midnight?" They didn't answer immediately, their face twisted in guilt. But then something strange happened. Instead of the confrontation I expected, they sighed and slowly stood up, walking toward me with a look of exhaustion in their eyes. "I was trying to protect you," they said softly. "It's not what you think, I swear." Confused, I stepped back, my heart racing. The next words that came out of their mouths shattered everything I thought I knew. "It wasn't an affair, not in the way you're thinking. Midnight, he's sick. I've been trying to figure out how to help him." I stared at them in shock, struggling to process what I had just heard. But before I could speak, they motioned to the saddle on the floor. "It's experimental for treatment, not what you thought." But just as I turned to look at Midnight, a horrifying realization hit me. Midnight wasn't just restless. He was trembling, staring at something in the corner of the room. And there, lying in the shadows, was the real secret. I turned to look where Midnight was staring, and what I saw made my stomach drop. In the far corner of the room, hidden beneath a pile of old blankets, was a small wooden box. I approached it cautiously, my heart pounding in my chest. When I opened it, I found vials, strange, medical-looking ones with labels I didn't recognize. A sudden clarity washed over me. It wasn't just an illness. My spouse had been researching treatments for Midnight's condition, desperate to find a cure for something I didn't know about. As I looked at my spouse, the tension in the room shifted. The secrecy, the strange behavior, the locked doors. It was all because they were trying to save our horse, not destroy our marriage. Midnight's health had been deteriorating, and they were working tirelessly, trying everything they could to help him. "I didn't want you to worry," they said, their voice breaking. "I thought I could fix it on my own." I let out a long breath, the weight lifting from my shoulders.